Hello and welcome. I'm Sam Califer, your host for Vision. Today, we're joined by Dr. Amanda Patrick, an associate professor from the Department of Chemistry.
All right, thanks for having me.
Thank you so much for being here. I'm excited to have you on. And just to start, I want to know about your academic journey. So how did you come to study your field of expertise and do so here at Mississippi State?
Yeah, so since I was little, I was interested in science. Back then I thought I wanted to do something with animals, so something like zoology or veterinary medicine. Mm-hmm. Then sometime around high school, I had a chemistry class that I really liked. That was when forensic science was kind of all everywhere in the media.
Sure.
And so that got me to declare a chemistry major when I went to do my undergraduate work at North Carolina State University.
Sure.
And while I was at NC State, I had the chance to do undergraduate research at NC State and also over the summer at Clemson University. And that's when I kind of figured out that I liked instruments and
Sure.
I liked analytical chemistry. And so that's what I decided to pursue when I went on to do my PhD at the University of Florida.
Sure.
That's where I started mass spectrometry,
Right.
which is what I still do now.
Mm-hmm.
And back then, though, I was looking more at biomolecules, so amino acids, peptides, things like that. And then I finished up my PhD. I went to postdoctoral training at the Air Force Research Labs, where I was in the Space Vehicles Directorate. And so I kept doing mass spectrometry, but that's where I learned about ionic liquids and started working with ionic liquids. But there it was really narrow. We had to specifically be looking at ionic liquids as they related to spacecraft propulsion systems.
Right.
And I realized that there were a lot of things outside of that narrow scope that was still unknown, a lot of gaps in the literature. And so since I've been here, I've been kind of taking all of that training and using the technique of mass spectrometry to fill in those gaps of our understanding in ionic liquids. And then it's also really nice because I'm also interested in the scholarship of teaching and learning. So being somewhere like Mississippi State, I can kind of pursue both of those interests, the research interests and the teaching and learning interests.
Yeah, I love to hear about a scientist's journey into their field because it always does start in that general interest. You just love animals and plants and the world around you, and so very cool to see how it filters down into something so specific. In the research chemistry with the instruments, that is something that people are typically shy away from.
Yeah.
So it's so interesting to have someone on the show who gets to talk about that. And yeah, so it's mass spectrometry.
Yes.
That's your area of research. And I think it's good that you get to do that here at the College of Arts and Sciences, which is all about science for science sake. So I think that's why it's a good fit. But can you tell me what exactly is mass spectrometry and why that over other options?
Yeah, so mass spectrometer is an instrument that essentially just weighs molecules. It can also be used to break up the molecules into different parts and weigh those parts. And so from that, you basically get a data set that's like a puzzle where you can then put it back together and figure out what was that molecule, what was its identity, and how much of it was there in your sample, right? And so the neat thing to me about mass spec, so mass spec for short, is that it can be applied to essentially any field, right? So if you think about things like carbon dating, that's mass spectrometry often. Clinical analysis, so looking for disease biomarkers, that's often done through mass spectrometry. And so there's just kind of any science or social science or anything that you can think of has some part of it that can be analyzed using a mass spectrometer. And as far as the why mass spectrometry over other sciences, that's a little bit of a tricky question. Because the honest answer is that I thought mass spectrometry within my interest of instrumentation and analytical chemistry would be something that would give me a good career, right? It's a nice lucrative pathway to pursue. And so that's what I wanted to do for my graduate studies. And I ended up lucking out in that it's a very supportive scientific community. It's a really interesting scientific community. And then what kept me in mass spec so far is, as I had mentioned, it's just ubiquitous and it's so flexible. There's so many different types of experiments you can run. There's so many different applications that you can be interested in. And so I found that to be really rewarding, where I have my research program, but there's also all of these collaborations ongoing, or maybe I'm looking at, flavor compounds in a meat product
Yeah,
or something like that.
wow.
You know, just lots of really interesting things.
Everything's made out of atoms.
Yep.
So if your expertise is weighing or
Absolutely.
investigating those atoms, it lets you look into anything that you want to.
Yep.
So yeah, that's so interesting. And so interesting you say that it's a supportive community, because I wanted to have you on because you were just recently named an emerging scholar by the Journal of American Mass Spectrometry. And it was only one of 19 globally, so huge deal, and kudos to you. And you've had a few weeks to think about it. So for reflecting on it, what would you say that means to you in your career?
Yeah, so it's always nice to be, recognized for things that you've been working on. And one of the really cool things about this is, not only is it that recognition from my society that we're doing good work in our group and that, my students are doing good work. It's also a recognition, for Mississippi State University, right? It's showing that we're doing this kind of research here at State. And then one of the kind of interesting things is that alongside that, they publish a special issue where each of the emerging investigators contribute an article. And so that article that we contributed, I had both a recent graduate and an undergraduate researcher co-author.
Yeah.
And so it's kind of nice that, in that issue that maybe is going to be read a little bit more because it is a special issue, that those students' hard work is being able to be highlighted also.
Yeah, I think that's something that people don't think about when you're a professor, is that building up of the younger scholars, and not just in the classroom. So having them have authored a paper now is so important for them too. So I like that you're thinking about it. It's not just the science, it's the instruction along the way. And yeah, emerging scholar sounds like a very fitting title for you. So congrats.
Thank you.
And yeah, so mass spectrometry, and talking about Mississippi State, I don't think people realize how big of an institution we are and what kind of technology we have here. So last year you secured a grant from the National Science Foundation so Mississippi State could have its own high-resolution mass spectrometer right here on campus. Yep. So it's been a year. What has that been like, having it on campus, and what does it mean for like the students and your department and the university as a whole?
Yeah, so this instrument, I have some instruments in just my research lab, but this instrument is part of our user facility in the department. And so what that means is that basically any student who, is on part of a funded project or whatever can come in, get trained on how to use the instrument, and then become a user and run their own experiments on it. And so it's a really great resource for not just people in chemistry, but for the entire research community. So we have, folks in geology and archaeology and engineering who come and use this resource. And by having it as part of a user facility, we're able to, allow people who maybe aren't mass spectrometrists,
right,
but who can use mass spectrometry for their various scientific questions. Like you said, everything's atoms and molecules.
Right.
So folks from all over, different fields and different scientific disciplines can use this resource now. And one of the really exciting things is that in addition to getting the instrument, the department's also recently been able to hire a facility manager.
Oh, wow.
And so what that means is that if maybe you think mass spectrometry can help you in your research, but you're not really sure how, we now have the person you can literally just shoot an email to or come by and chat with, and he can help you figure out, what analysis do I need to do, maybe help you develop a method, help you, figure out how to apply it to your research. So my hope is that both the instrument and this new manager will allow us to kind of impact more areas than we could before, right? So if everything had to go through me as your collaborator,
right,
there's only so many hours in the day, but having that dedicated resource and that dedicated person hopefully will allow, a lot of different cool science to happen that maybe wasn't able to happen. As far as students, the undergraduate researchers, the graduate researchers all can be trained on the instrument and become users. And then we've also historically used some of these instruments in upper division labs, and so that's definitely an opportunity for students. And one of the neat things is that recently in the Journal of Chemical Education, they had a survey that showed that mass spectrometry was one of the top skills that the chemical industry workforce wanted people to have. And so now that is available at Mississippi State University for our graduates to be really competitive.
What a perfect, storm of things that it helps students on that individual level, but also for a career. Like having hands-on experience with that advanced technology is huge. But then it just helps the academic community of Mississippi State as a whole. And other units can come use it and collaborate. And so, yeah, that's just so important. And, I think people don't realize that. You can go take a chemistry class somewhere else, maybe out in a community college, but that technology and the higher level, all the instrumentation you need to go to a big university.
And also all of the networking, right?
Yeah.
So they can, come and get trained by me and by that manager. And then also, for the graduate students, we have a dedicated mass spectrometry graduate level course.
Wow.
So they can come and really dive into the instruments and the applications.
Yeah.
And again, that's not just chemistry, which we maybe think of. We've had folks from animal and dairy science or biochemistry coming over and learning about how they can apply this technique to their research.
Yeah, just endless ways to use it, and I think the way it builds up the research capabilities of Mississippi State is so great. So that's awesome. All right, we have one more minute. I would love to just hear about your future plans regarding instruction or research.
Yeah, so on the research side, we're finishing up actually a College of Arts and Sciences SRI.
Oh, congrats.
And so that's opening new venues for us to use mass spectrometry for analytical characterization of ionic liquids toward understanding the extent to which they may be environmental contaminants. And so we're wrapping up that pilot project and then hopefully extending that idea into several new directions in the coming years. So really excited on that.
Right.
And then on instruction side, I've been working really hard to try and help improve our general chemistry where we can see all of those kind of connections and relationships. Why do we have our chemistry general education requirement?
Right.
How does it relate to different students' majors and interests? So I think that's really important.
Yeah, connecting to them and on that undergraduate level, not just the graduate or the PhD
Absolutely.
student. So thank you so much for joining me and all the great effort you're doing here at State. So cool to get to talk to you. And thank you all for tuning in to this episode of Vision. We'll see you next time.